There was some news this week that won't come as news to anyone who watches the news. According to a new study, this year's election coverage has focused almost exclusively on the candidates' fitness for office. Issues coverage has been almost totally absent. I don't have to tell you what they have been covering. If you tune into one of the network evening newscasts, hoping to find out where the candidates stand on the environment, immigration, crime, or foreign policy, you'll be grossly disappointed.
You ever see crooked Hillary Clinton?
According to longtime media analyst Andrew Tyndall, all three networks have focused presidential coverage on the candidates' fitness for office. That's because the candidates themselves have fixated on honesty, trustworthiness, judgment, temperament, stamina, good health, comportment, and boorishness. The report says issues coverage has been virtually non-existent, with a total of 32 minutes combining all three networks over the course of the year. It wasn't always this way.
On Iraq, on Iran, on immigration.
Even as recently as 2008, an open election, networks gave issues a lot more time. And 4 years ago, when Mitt Romney challenged President Obama, issues got a lot more attention, too.
In the last 4 years, women have lost 580,000 jobs.
While the networks have given some coverage to terrorism and a few other issues, Tyndall says there's been zero coverage on drugs, poverty, guns, and the deficit. Now, that's a deficit. The thing of it is about this, though, that fitness for office is also critical. And as we just discussed in the last segment, it's like you end up focusing on things that take on a bigger life. I mean, yeah, of course we all care about where they stand on these issues, and we have heard it. I think we have to give credit to the debates. Andrew Tyndall did not look at any kind of a forum. He just looked at the network newscast. He did not look at cable, which has also had some reasonable discussions when they're not shouting at each other about issues and where they stand. And, of course, the debates, which have been quite informative. But these network newscasts are kind of focusing on the developments of the news of the day, and this is what it's been.
You know, even good newspapers tend not to do a lot on the issues. When they go deep on a candidate, it's fitness for office. That and the horse race are kind of what the media are good at. Now, I'm going to go off the rails here a little bit and say, I don't know. I think there's a time and a place for the issues, and the real time for the issues is during the primaries, when you've got all these people running against each other within the same party. I think that's when it really matters. When you get to the general election, we usually have a pretty good sense of what the Democrats stand for, what the Republicans stand for. And at that point, I think that fitness for office is the most appropriate thing to look at. But in this particular case, the candidates have been there's been so much to cover in terms of fitness for office that I think even the little bit that we give to issues has been understandably kind of left behind.
I think people treat this kind of the way they treat tabloids, where they say, you know, oh, I care about highbrow journalism, but someone's buying all the tabloids. I think it's the same thing. People say that they want to hear about the issues, but the things that they really want to hear about are the scandals or tell me what's going on. And one measure of this isn't scientific. I love sitting around at airports and when I'm traveling, not to just go visit an airport. But, I like going to when I'm sitting at an airport. I love to listen to conversations, and I heard two conversations, and both of them had to do not with issues, but with, oh, I hate this guy, I like this guy, and it just went into everything, all the dirt, and I don't trust either one of them, and not a single one said, hey, what about the economy? What about this issue, education? Not a single thing. Now that's only two couples that I overheard, but that's the kind of thing that you're hearing in coffee shops and homes across the country.
But is that because that's all the media is focusing on?
Well, I think it's what came first. And it's hard to tell, but I do think that it goes back to my tabloid thing. People enjoy the seedier part of life, and it's easy to put that stuff in a soundbite and sell it. But it's hard to sell immigration or something that you've heard about over time. And, how do you hold a conversation about that? This is easier.
True.
Yeah, I was going to say that, it's so much easier to remember. I actually think there has been some issues, but what you remember the most are the character flaws, and I think character is a big part of this election, like Dan said. I mean, it is. I think at the end of the day, we want to know, how does Trump treat women? We want to know Hillary Clinton, and we want to know about her emails, and was she above the law or did she break the law? I think there are real issues to be discussed on that, and it'll be interesting what happens after the election. Will we then focus in on issues once again?
It's never
no.
Well, we're going to have to.
These two were the most disliked major party nominees in history at the beginning of this whole cycle, right? The general election cycle. I mean, there was coverage about their personalities. I'm paraphrasing in a way what you just said. People really don't like them as a pair. So I think that's one thing that drove the fitness for office coverage. I'm not sure I agree with you, Dan, that this is no longer the time to do issues coverage. We've been trying to hit this every week on Greater Boston, pick out one key issue. They're diametrically opposed on most issues. But on climate change, for example, it didn't come up in any of the presidential debates. So it's worth reminding people, I hope, that Donald Trump says it's a hoax and that he has no plan to fight it, and has actually said we'd pull out of the Paris Agreement if he's elected president, and that Hillary Clinton, cares about it but doesn't care as much as Bernie Sanders seemed to. It's not bad, I don't think, to come back and remind people that there are key policy decisions that are going to be made.
There are, and this is such an unusual election in so many ways. You're right, it is useful to remind people that Trump has said climate change is a hoax perpetrated by the Chinese, which is just
to undercut American manufacturing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like nothing. Even the climate change skeptics in the Republican Party have never said that. So, I mean, yeah, it is worth reminding people of that.
Yeah, because people don't pay any attention. So this is actually a critical time to. But I think people pretty much understand where the two candidates stand. But
I'll tell you though, if we tried to do a climate change story tonight, and it went up against the new email development story, no one's going to pay any attention.